Welcome to Beans and Breakdowns, a podcast dedicated to bridging the gap between specialty coffee and the heavy music community. Today on the podcast, I'm joined by Adam Easterling of the band Orthodox. Orthodox has been a driving force in the Nashville and Midwest hardcore region, so it was awesome to get to sit down and hang out with Adam. So grab a fresh cup of coffee and wake the fuck up! What's going on, Caffeinated Crew? I'm here with Adam Easterling of the band Orthodox. Adam, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well. Very happy to be here. Very happy to be awake.
Yes.
Drinking coffee shortly.
Yes. We'll jump right into the coffee because
Okay.
it's a struggle right now. What are you drinking on your side?
So I have a Columbian from a brand called, or from a roastery called, I might be saying this wrong, but it's Devocion. It's, I believe, strictly South African coffee. The roastery, I think, is in New York. My buddy, his name's Harold. He plays in Koyo, Hangman, Pain of Truth, all these different name a popular band from like the corner of America, and Harold's probably got his hands in it somewhere. But over the pandemic, over the lockdown portion of the pandemic, I got in the habit of like friends of mine and I would like swap bags, just because we couldn't get coffee together because every tour was canceled for the foreseeable future, basically. So he sent me one from them, and I have ordered many bags ever since. So.
What was the name of that roaster again?
Devocion. It's Devocion.
My friend literally just spent like 2 weeks in New York and sent me that one. He's like, you have to check this place out. I am drinking something very special today. I'd been saving it for a special occasion. So
I made the cut.
Yes, it's from BLENDIN. It's a coffee roastery in Houston. I was able to pick some up, and it's Silvio Aura. It's a small lot Colombian farm, and this is a Colombian washed geisha, which if you haven't gotten your hands on any geishas, really good. But it's super, super good, like crazy good flavors, like yuzu, ginger, citrusy with a bit of tartness.
Ooh.
It's amazing. And it's crazy. It's like a super small lot. I think they were able to bring back, like the farm produced 9 kilograms of this coffee in total.
So how much did you spend on that bag?
So I got 100 grams, which is a third the size of like a normal bag of coffee. And I think it was $26.
It sounds worth it though. 3 cups, you know.
Right.
But
do you have a favorite local roaster or shop in the Nashville area?
Favorite shop is called Humphrey Street. That's like my favorite place for getting a drink, basically. They have unreal atmosphere, really, really like calm, really pretty inside. Basically, my whole rule of thumb for a coffee shop is if I don't feel slightly judged walking in, I don't really want to drink there. But like it has to be super like borderline bougie, like really modern. But Humphrey Street is like it was like a church back in the early 1900s. So it still has like this, not the stained glass windows, but the stained glass window shapes and really cool atmosphere. But their drinks are second to none in Nashville, aside from maybe Crema, because that's like the staple shop here. Right. But they actually, the cool thing that they do, and I may not have the exact spiel of what they say correct, but they basically do a lot of community-based efforts, and a lot of their staff is actually, teenagers and students and such from lower income areas that they bring on. So all the tips go to them, and it's a really cool project. So speaking of geisha, that's actually the first geisha that I tried was from them. A couple months ago, they had a specialty bag that was very good as well. But
yeah, it's crazy. The geisha is crazy flavor. At the shop, they had a Panamanian geisha, which is like, that's what's hot right now, is that Panamanian geisha. If you can find it, just crazy flavor, like super citrusy with like, I don't even know how to describe it. The tasting notes on geishas are always just out the window, like insane.
Yeah. But, and it's always one extreme or the other. Like the one from Humphrey Street was like very dark.
Yeah.
Which is not usually my thing, but I was like, this is like, I'm a guy where I want it to be as acidic as possible, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want the roof of my mouth to be coated with like just acidity for the rest of the day.
Dude, the next bag you need to buy is from, I know Taylor mentioned it. Taylor Carpenter mentioned it on his episode, but Sump, SUMP,
mm-hmm.
literally the best beans I've ever made at home. I don't have any clue what it is that they do to make every one of their, like every roast that they have is just has some odd, almost like savory component to it, mm-hmm. mixed with whatever acidic, there was one point where they had a Kenyan bag that I loved so much that they were like they were about to be done with the rotation of it. So I went in and bought like 4 bags of it and just kept it in my freezer. I was like, I'm going to keep this as long as I can. And when I got down to my last cup, I was very upset.
I love Kenyan coffees. It's like such a complex, earthy, like, but not like a South American earthy. It's like much more like vegetal. Mm-hmm. That's a really pretentious word, but
I like that.
Yeah, super judgmentally pretentious, but yeah, vegetal flavors. It's really good.
Yeah. I recently got one from Onyx, which is another roaster that I order from all the time.
Yeah.
And shout out to their product manager, because their branding and their the box that it comes in, just all of it is so cool. But I love one thing about them is they have a little modern to traditional scale on the top of their boxes where you can kind of see mm-hmm. what you're getting. And I got a Kenyan recently that was just all the way modern. I didn't even know it until I got it. And the moment I got the box and looked, I was like, oh, it's going to be a good morning. We're going to have a good time. And it's like white tangerine. Does that exist? White elderflower or something. And then crisp apple, mm-hmm. tangerine, crazy.
Wait, was that a blend or was it single origin?
Hold on. I'll get the box and I'll tell you.
Because I had one that was almost exactly the same.
Kenya, I'm going to butcher the second word. Makana, natural.
Yeah, that's a natural single origin Kenyan. But they're tropical weather. Their blend. Yeah. That is a good coffee.
That's the one that they don't take off the rotation.
Ever. It's so good.
My buddy Randy LaBeouf at Graphic Nature, he just bought a Kyoto rig, so he can make his own crazy like 4-hour drip thing. And he bought a 2-pound bag of tropical weather, and we're going to be up there for a couple hours before our first show on this upcoming tour. And he was like, hey, I'm going to make a special batch for you. We're going to do some Andy Palmer's, which is the lemonade and cold brew. And I was like, man, that looks delicious. So
good.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
I don't know what I've heard it called multiple things like Kofega and stuff like that, but that mm-hmm. long drip, mm-hmm. like cold drip, the most
water on the top and like 60 grams. And then you have to let it soak for an hour, and you put the water in. It's supposed to drip kind of like an IV, like 2 to 3 drops a second, I think.
Yeah, it's super weird.
Wrong, but it happens over the span of a 4-hour brew, and it's ridiculous.
This super complex, like crazy flavored. You could put anything in there and get like just the strangest tasting notes in the cup. I love that.
Yep.
That's sick. I'm happy to talk to somebody that's just as into coffee as I am.
Yep. Literally, as I was saying before we started, for the people who won't hear that prior conversation, this podcast, as soon as I saw Tay Carpenter post that he was on it, I was like, oh man, that's literally, if I was going to do a podcast, that would be it. But now that I'm talking to you, I'm realizing how much I don't know about coffee. So I don't even that you got here first.
No, because I'm also like, I'll get into conversations where I'm like, I really don't want to back myself into a corner that I can't get out of. We can move into some of the music talk now. What are 3 bands that got you into hardcore?
Hardcore was mainly the first hardcore band. So Nashville was very much not like there was a hardcore scene here, but it was not your traditional sense of it. And the majority of the things that were popular when I was coming around were, as I know you love, A Plea for Purging. As Hell Retreats was a really popular one here. So that genre of heavy, often religious metalcore was kind of the thing here. It's either that or then the opposite end of the spectrum with just brutal deathcore stuff. Like Whitechapel was from Knoxville, and they were a huge deal here. I mean, still are a huge deal everywhere. But the first hardcore band that I ever saw that I really enjoyed their set was actually Another Mistake from Kentucky. And Tyler Short now sings for Inclination. Probably still to this day one of my favorite vocalists just to watch perform. And I would say them, to get into heavy music in general, Linkin Park was a very, very big deal to me. And then there's so many the one I've spoken about 100 million times at this point is System of a Down. So I'm just going to spare anyone who's heard me ever on a podcast before that one, because you already know it. One that you might not. Comeback Kid is, in my mind, one of the best hardcore bands to ever exist. And the fact that they're probably pushing 20 years at this point, and still one of the most solid bands ever, still put out really good records. Yeah, that band was one of the first hardcore bands I got into. I was like, oh, this is really cool. Wake the Dead was the first anthem song I ever knew.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's very similar to me too.
Yeah.
I heard somebody was like, have you heard this band Comeback Kid? It was that and Evergreen Terrace.
Yep.
Were the 2 first hardcore bands.
Oh, and Casey Jones. That was a good one for me.
Casey Jones, Evergreen Terrace, almost. But yeah, if you're smoking in here, you better be on fire. That's one of my favorite song titles of all time.
Did you ever see them when they were doing the tour for whatever their last LP was that had Butt Hash on it? Yeah. Oh, dude,
no.
It's gnarly. It was, they had the singer just went on this rant about how people in Florida, I think it was, were pissing and shitting in a bag and leaving it for days and then huffing it, and it got them high.
Wait, this was at a show?
Not happening there, but that's what a song. I mean, the ignorant straight edge band that Casey Jones was like, this is stupid. I'm going to write a song about how stupid you are.
Oh yeah. That's the whole premise of that. Yeah. I love that. No, so, I didn't even hear that. That's amazing.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I got my facts right. I would be careful if you're listening to this. If you want to Google Butt Hash, just be aware that the algorithm's watching at all times. And
you should make sure that your save search is on.
You're going to start getting ads for Ziploc bags pretty quick.
Mason jars and Ziploc bags.
Stool softener. We can move on.
TMI.
Yeah, those bands were pretty heavily influential to me early on.
Getting into vocals, did you always want to be a vocalist, or what kind of pushed you to that direction?
I've been a drummer much longer than I've been a singer. Really what pushed me to be a vocalist was just, I always loved singing along. I've always written lyrics. It was just never something I understood. Because again, coming from, a metalcore, deathcore scene, it was like if you couldn't do the crazy gutturals and super high stuff. And I had absolutely no idea how. I still have very small grasp on how that is done. And started listening to hardcore music and be like, oh, I can just be loud and it works. You don't have to do anything all that special. And that was kind of the point where I was starting to think like, oh, it might be fun to be a vocalist, get people to sing my songs for once, so on and so forth. And so I started doing guest vocal spots for just like hopping on the stage with my friends' bands and just doing little parts here and there. And then one day I got hit up by the original drummer of Orthodox saying that he and a different guy were doing some tryouts for their hardcore band. And I was like, yeah, why not? And that's what Orthodox became.
That's cool. I've been a drummer for a very long time, but I've always wanted to be in one, like just one time. I want to be like, I wonder what it's like to be a frontman. And then, so that's funny that's kind of what led you to do it, is like, I like singing too.
Yeah. Yeah. Being a frontman, what's funny is that like the shows where there's more consistency in enjoying being a drummer, because if you show up to the show and 15 people are there, you can still play your instrument and have a good time. If I'm the singer of this band, especially Orthodox, where my whole job is like, hey, you got to act fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And like do all that corny shit. Like if that's what I have to do, and I'm in like probably the most recent incident was somewhere in Pennsylvania. I don't remember where it was. We ended up playing with a band that the guy had literally built robots, and the robots played grindcore while he sang.
That's not it.
No, I'm not making this up. This is literally, what the fuck was it called? Captured by Robots or something like that?
This is a real band.
This happened in 2019. We were on tour with Slaughter to Prevail and Body Snatcher, and us and Body Snatcher had a one-off. And that was the band that headlined this like little 2-stage thing. But we ended up playing first, and there was maybe 12 people in the room. Oh, yeah. And the stage is about as tall as my shins. So and it's not a big stage. It's like, man, this is really awkward. And I hadn't been very fortunate that the majority of our shows for the last couple of years, even if people aren't feeling it, have at least enough bodies for me to like grasp an energy from the room to like play on the floor to barely anybody again. I was like, man, it just took me back to my whole point of this, is that moment where I'm like, fuck, I wish I was a drummer, because I can just play my instrument and look sweet. But now I've got to try to sell this, as well as like physically throw myself around and yell and be out of breath and exhausted for 10 people who are probably not going to be impressed because the room is tiny and nobody's here to react. So yeah, it's being a drummer. Purgatory was the only band I ever played drums in, where we toured a lot. So I've never done like the length of a tour that Orthodox does on drums outside of that. But I kind of miss the like show up, go to a corner, set your stuff up by yourself, tune your stuff, and then, play and not be the focus. Yeah.
That is a blessing and a curse, I would say, because you can just be like doing your shit back there. Nobody gives a fuck. Like you're just, doing your thing.
Yep.
But then sometimes you get ambitious and you like look out and you're like, I wonder what it's like on the other side of this drum fence.
Yep. Also, if you fuck up as a drummer, it is the most notable fuck up on the entire stage.
You're the loudest thing.
And also you're the floor. Like you are literally, anything that happens, if you fuck up, it can cause everything else to just go terribly wrong.
100%.
And so it's the least and most complicated at the exact same time.
Moving into, the new release and everything, the video for Body and Soul just came out 2 weeks ago. And you guys are releasing that on Century Media. Congratulations, by the way. That's sick.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
What are some of the lyrical themes that you're approaching on this? I guess you guys are having an LP come out following the single.
This single was kind of just we signed to Century Media in the summer of 2020. So we just haven't had any reason to say that we were on the label yet. We didn't want to just be like, hey, we're on this label, and then just do nothing. So the single is actually secular of the record that we just finished. It's just a way to have a new song out before this tour with the Easterling and Kubla Khan and Dying Wish, and then also have something to present with signing to the label. But in regards to the lyrical themes of the song itself, it's kind of just, it was really just a song where I wrote mainly about the constant, rejection and scrutiny that you undergo as a artist.
Yeah.
For the most part. And so it's mainly just a bunch of metaphors about like literally throwing my body in the trash can to present a piece and it not being enough for half the people that hear it. So
yeah,
that is the main theme of that song.
I know that the video, hearing that's kind of the video definitely matches that aesthetic. Was that an idea that you guys had, or did you kind of hand off the idea to Eric, the director, and he kind of just took the lead on it?
So the video, so one of the coolest parts of the video for me is Ryan Rado, the guy that's actually doing the paintings.
Mm-hmm.
So that becomes the album art that you see on Spotify, all the streaming services.
Yeah.
He was actually reacting to the song as he did that. We literally had 2 canvases pushed together and he just did that in the 3 minutes, 50 seconds, whatever the song is, and just did it. And we filmed that and had it on there. And so we had a discussion and figured out, he told us to pick like a couple of colors, and that's what we wanted to do for, 3 colors plus background in white, basically. And so then we took that and we're like, hey, Eric, these are going to be the colors that we're using for the album art. What can we do here? And we honestly, we threw it together very last minute. And I don't want to say what the original idea was because we might still do it, but okay. We had another idea where we started looking at material costs and we're like, oh yeah, we're going to need to do that a different time. But basically we kind of just threw it together very last minute of okay, so we've got these colors on the painting. The whole idea is to just be chaos. You're constantly throwing something on a page, even though you don't know what it is.
Right.
It turned out really cool because I think the song itself, it lends sonically sounds like a bunch of splatter. So it lined up really well. And of course, Eric can, make a dog taking a piss look like art. So
yeah,
it was a pretty for how, the week of, we were trying to figure out ideas because we kind of, as a band, waited a little too long to try to arrange it. But then it all came together and we ended up actually shooting it on the stage at the end in Nashville, which is the hardcore venue of Nashville. And yeah, I mean, Eric really, he brought 3 different cameras and 5 or 6 different lights, and it was really cool production. We got it all done in 6 hours. So
that's awesome. That's really good. I was even talking to my friend Nolan in Vatican.
Mm-hmm.
They did their video and he was it was literally a 12 to 13 hour day.
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to do that in 6 hours probably is really great.
Yeah. That was, what's funny was doing we went in and everybody did your own individual shots before we did any paint on the drop cloths.
Mm-hmm.
And none of us we still haven't played a show since the lockdown. None of us had even acted like we were playing a show. And by the end of each of our individual runs, aside from Mike, because he gets to just sit there and play drums, but me, Shiloh, and Austin were all just, what the fuck? I literally was done. By the time I was done with my first roll through, I had to go lay down and my neck, I couldn't hold my head up. And I had to my fiance was there. She was bringing me water. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to die.
This is the most cardio I've done in a year.
Yeah. And then at the same time, that's what I'm most worried about, is getting back to shows, is how are we supposed to, we're going from not playing any shows since March of 2020 to we're going to play, I think 39 in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So that first week, it's going to be rough. It's going to be really rough.
Gonna need to do a lot of stretching, drink a lot of water, stay hydrated.
I'm trying in my mind to figure out how I can incorporate a mic stand more, so I can I have an excuse to not be everywhere at once. Because not only has it been however long it's been since we played a show, but I'm that many days older now. So that actually takes toll.
Yeah, the aging has to be a factor in it as well.
Yeah, especially when you're in your late 20s, suddenly stepping out of bed, everything pops and you don't know why. So,
oh man, I'm there already. I know exactly the feeling. The importance of DIY, even in a metalcore and metal, even deathcore, but having a DIY mindset, DIY/hardcore mindset, especially coming from Nashville. How important has that been for the growth of Orthodox and bands like that, with Chamber and other bands from especially that Tennessee, Kentucky, because Knocked Loose came up the same way.
DIY makes you appreciate when you start to be able to actually reap in some of the privileges of the reward of your efforts. The DIY is what makes that worth it. Orthodox had no other choice because we've been a band it'll be 10 years next year. And we're just now getting to a point where we wanted to be. And a lot of that was to do with just the fact that we haven't had anybody really push us. Mm-hmm. Unbeaten Records did everything they could, but they are very much a DIY label. And, if it weren't for them, we would probably not be a band anymore. But simply put, the DIY mindset is what makes getting somewhere so much more worth it. And, Knocked Loose is a prime. It wasn't their official headliner, but the first time they headlined a tour, mm-hmm. out west at least, we were on that tour. It was Knocked Loose, us, and Another Mistake. It was 2015. And that was prime example. We were literally with them the moment that shit started really popping off. And suddenly the venues and the literal houses that were booked for these tours were this is too small for this show. And me, Tyler Shorten, our original bassist Zachariah, would literally have to link arms between Brian and the drums so that he wouldn't get thrown through it most nights. That we literally learned the set and we're oh, crowd's coming up here. We link and just brace and basically save Brian from getting thrown through the drums every night. And, Knocked Loose is a very, very much the exact same mentality of I'm pretty sure this is their first tour where they aren't in a van. Aside from Europe, I'm pretty sure they
Warped Tour or something
with a van.
Yeah.
I think they did Warped Tour in a van.
Oh my God.
No, actually, no, they split one with somebody, I think. But nonetheless, this is the first tour they've ever done a bandwagon.
It's sick.
And it's just simply because they're there's no, this is still very much a passion over profession for them. Mm-hmm. And they just happen to be the best at doing it.
And that's something that I hear people give Knocked Loose so much shit, and I'll talk about them on this podcast so much because I just so respect their hustle and everything. And they're still writing music that you can tell they enjoy.
Dude, if you give Knocked Loose shit, then just shut the fuck up. Literally every aspect that you probably like about heavy music, they seamlessly introduce into their music somehow. And if you can't appreciate taking counter opposite influences and putting them in a song and making it work to where it doesn't sound forced, then you genuinely don't understand songwriting, and you shouldn't speak about how they write songs, because Brian literally just wrote an EP that is based on a fictional story and still somehow made it catchy. That is so difficult. Not only that, but to write lyrics to fit a linear timeline and also make sure that the parts still match what's happening sonically. That in itself is ridiculous. And that doesn't even begin to touch the fact that the music of that EP is, to me, light years ahead of where they just were, which was already light years ahead of everybody else.
I have so much respect for that. And for you guys and, bands that come out of this DIY, like come up in the hardcore scene like you guys have. And so I have a lot of respect for people like you. Vatican, who I've watched grow since I was like in high school and seen those guys and their bands and change. And now they're, signed and doing big things. So,
Vatican is the most underrated metalcore band in the game right now.
You heard it here, people.
Yeah, no, literally. I mean, they are so much better than so many bands that get so much attention. And I'm like, dude, this band is everything that some of these bands are trying to be, but way better than it. And so as we just went into the studio with Randy, they also were there. Right, they literally left a couple days before we arrived, and I got to hear some of the new stuff. If it doesn't catch on, I won't be surprised necessarily, not because the stuff is not incredible, but just because some people just don't understand what's great when it's in front of them. Mm-hmm. But it's seriously one of the best records that's going to come out whatever year it comes out. It's probably going to be next year. It's going to be one of the best records that comes out next year. 100%. And Mike Sugars as their singer is just it's a fucking joke how good that guy is. Like, it's ridiculous.
I remember when the Become a New God, like the Fractured God came out, the video. I was like, oh shit, it's not Jonathan anymore. And then I dug a little bit. I was like, oh shit, this dude, he's from Church Tongue. It's going to be heavy as fuck. And then, listening to that, Hosian is such a good drummer. Like, he doesn't practice hardcore music. He literally, his practicing is like tech death. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what he plays. It's fucking amazing. So I love those boys. I'm so proud of them. I'm like a proud little papa. So, but I love that you guys, I love seeing bands come out of like the small hardcore scenes around the US. And then if you track the underground scene, like following like 197 Media or 856 even and stuff like that. And then you see those bands get signed and start playing big tours with the Acacia Strain. It's like, fuck, I remember when those guys were playing like 100-person little venues. Yep. Sick. I love seeing that. And I love the grind and like the hustle and like the family aspect of when a band starts to take off. Everybody's like pushing and supporting, like, do it, let's go. I love that.
So, that's one of the cooler parts about having a scene that's also kind of like an interconnected community. Mm-hmm. It's just when a few people love it, everybody loves it, and it gets pushed. And it's cool when it finally like breaks out of just that community and starts to like leak into the other, small branches of the tree and then grows on its own. It's just it's a very long process to get there 9 out of 10 times. Yeah. Every now and then one breaks in really quick. Chamber is one of those prime examples where like we took them on their first tour, and in the middle of that tour, they got a Gideon tour offer. And then from there, it's just been nonstop. Like, just absolute, and they deserve every bit of it. Like, I've already bragged about them enough, but literally even them in their mentality is no matter how crazy their tours get, it's not enough and they want more. And that's what you have to have. Yeah.
It's very much like a grind, like a hustle, and just work your ass off until it pays off. Mm-hmm. 100%. Well, Adam, I have one last question for you. I really appreciate you hanging out and talking. It's been a lot of fun, but I just have to ask, what is your favorite city for beans and breakdowns?
Favorite city for coffee? That's really hard. Show wise, I would say I have to give a huge shout out to like Dallas, Fort Worth, as well as Denver, Colorado Springs area. Those two scenes have always just been, and Chicago as well. God, those three, I wish they were closer to here because I play them all the time. It's ridiculous. Just constant support in ways that, like, every time we post merch, like our first 6 orders are always from Texas. It's either Dallas, Houston, or San Antonio one, which we luckily are hitting all 3 on this upcoming tour. But I would say those are probably my favorites for the breakdowns. Coffee, I really got into Mod Cup in New Jersey. That's one that I've ordered a lot from. And then when we were in New Jersey for this record, we spent a month out there, and Randy and I made a couple of trips out there just to a couple of their shops, and it's unreal coffee. So I would probably say New Jersey, and also shout out to La Colombe's shop in Chicago, because they have a draft oat milk nitro latte, and it's fucking ridiculous.
Me and Taylor talked about nitro or the tap lattes for a while.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Dude, it's dangerous because it's mainly foam and you drink it just done. And then you're like, oh, I need another one. And so you end up having 3 or 4 in 2 hours time. And then suddenly you can't look anywhere but straight, and
the room is spinning.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. And that was Mod Cup that you in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. I'll check them out for sure.
Yep.
That's awesome. I really appreciate you coming on and hanging out. It's been a really fun time.
Yeah, man. It's been a great time. Thank you for having me.
And everybody make sure to check out the video for Body and Soul and listen to the single and just put it on repeat and give it like thousands of plays while you're working.
Please. Yes. For the love of God.
And if you can, check out the tour with the Acacia Strain, Dying Wish, and Kubla Khan. There's like 40 dates, and guaranteed you can drive to one of them. So go and see them. So enjoy the rest of your day, Adam. I hope everything with the tour goes well, and I guess have a great tour. Thanks for listening to this episode of Beans and Breakdowns. I want to say a huge thanks to Adam for coming on the podcast and talking with me about coffee and Orthodox and the DIY scene. It was a great time, and I really appreciate you coming on. Be sure to go check out the newest single from Orthodox, Body and Soul, available on all listening platforms on Century and New Media. And be sure to check out the video as well, because it really is super killer. You can also follow Orthodox on Instagram at OrthodoxTN. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. You can find out more about the podcast online at beansandbreakdowns.com and follow us on Instagram at beansandbreakdowns. Until next week, be sure to stay caffeinated and wake the fuck up.